Welcome to the Growth with AI podcast, hosted by Integrated AI Services. I'm Peter Martinson, and today's episode explores how AI is transforming marketing operations and client engagement. Our guest is David Lederman, founder of GEMS Business Solutions, an agency helping businesses scale through automation, data-driven strategy, and what he calls agenic AI teammates. We'll discuss how AI is changing the way agencies communicate with prospects, how small businesses can adopt intelligent systems without losing the human touch, and what the next generation of marketing looks like when AI becomes part of the team. David, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
So tell me your story. How did you get into marketing and how did you get to where you are now?
Sure. So it's a long story. I started my creative endeavors because I like to say I went to art school and I studied sculpture and computer animation. So
Hmm.
that was a lot of storytelling. And so I know that marketing, obviously I figured that part out later in life, but marketing is telling a great story and having people relate to you, right? And want to remember you and want to do business with you. So from a young age, I was very much into the arts. And then after that, I started working for an e-commerce company right out of college, trying to be the starving artist approach, right? Went trying to get jobs at art galleries and just being a graphic designer, anything in the arts. And then this is actually a funny story of how I met my wife. I basically got hired at this e-commerce company to be a graphic designer. And then on the Monday after I got hired, this beautiful young girl sits in my desk and I'm basically calling the owner like, who is this young lady sitting in my desk? I thought I got my first job with you. I was 22 years old. And he's like, well, you both were competing for the same position. You didn't mind answering phone calls and doing packaging in the warehouse. So I figured, let me just hire you both because I get the best of both worlds. So obviously at that time, I wasn't very fond of her, right? Because she had stolen my job. But because of that, it gave me the opportunity to become the director of operations of that company after about 2 years because I didn't get stuck into the design aspect and I was able to basically help him grow and build the vision for his company. And obviously, we started getting along right after that. It wasn't a very long period. I did become her boss after about a year and a half. So I don't know if she liked that too much. We weren't really seeing each other at that time. It was really an employee relationship only. And then from that, over the next 7 years that I worked there, I basically built the company not from the ground up because he had already done an incredible job getting it to where it was, but we scaled production, improved cost of goods, manufacturing in China and then bottling here instead of buying all the parts and putting labels and stickering everything together, improving the actual value of how much income he was generating per unit sold. I also optimized wholesale departments, improved fulfillment center, and obviously worked in marketing for him. So we hired an agency at the time. This was 2017, 16-ish time. So meta ads were just becoming very popular. People were just realizing the value of social media. And we were spending about 50,000 in a 3-month retainer and then about $500 in ad spend a day. And this agency was just not converting. It was not generating the sales that the owner was looking for. So he came to me and at the time, Nikita, which currently is my wife, to basically compete in-house with this agency he had hired. So he's like, look, I can't give you guys 500 a day, but I'm going to put, a budget for 250 a day. And let's see what we can do with what we know about our business versus what this
Hmm.
agency we had hired. And so within that first 2 months of running ads, we actually decided to split half the budget into brand awareness, doing comedy stuff, fun, interactive stuff. And by the way, the business was in hair loss. So it was a shampoo for hair loss. So we played around with like Kevin Hart memes and a lot of funny stuff. And we grew our followers on Facebook at that time to about 15,000 followers. And then on top of that, generated the same amount of conversions through the conversion campaigns as the agency was doing with $500 in ad spend. So that's, I think, when it clicked in my head like, hey, I think I might know something here. There's no way that I'm delivering better results than, a very, very good agency. Obviously, I stayed at that company for a little bit longer, working with them, growing them up. And then it shifted a little bit because my dad decided to open a restaurant in Coral Gables. And my dad's a software developer. So he's not really in the restaurant industry, as one might think. So at that point, this was 2018. I jumped in because there was a lot of debt happening in the restaurant. We're losing about $15,000 a month on just cost of operations. and generating 15. So $30,000 in costs, $15,000 in income. After 6 months, him and his partners were just like, hey, we need to fix this. So they called me. I jumped in like undercover boss, like the TV show. I went into the kitchen and I was like, okay, guys, teach me how to clean, how to cook, how to actually do the plates and washing everything, how to wait, because I had never been a waiter before. So through that experience, within about 6 months, I was able to get us past break even. For another 6 months, we were profitable. And then in 2019, we sold the business because I told the partners, like, I'm not running the show the way I had been running it just to save the business. But I
Now,
learned so much.
were you running that while you were working full time for the other company?
Yes, I was
Wow.
still
Okay.
director of the other company working virtually before virtual was a thing. And because I had already built a very good relationship with the owner, and by the way, he's a client and still a very close friend till this day, from that experience, I was able to kind of balance both together, right? Don't get me wrong, I wasn't like full time at the other company, but I was basically managing daily, operations, making sure orders went out, marketing was hitting KPIs, the team was self sufficient enough. And then once a week, I'd go in and check in on everything. But after that, we sold the restaurant and I went back to the business and I was like, I had a very big heart to heart with the owner. I was like, look, man, I made you a lot of money. I saved my dad a lot of money. And so from that experience, I was like, I think it's time for me to jump on my own. And at that time, I was already dating Nikita. We had been dating for a couple of years, and she was really that last, motivation to be like, hey, you can do it. And so we did. I took a crash course on how to start your own agency back then, where everybody was releasing all these educational courses. And from that point, I kind of just went on Upwork, started making calls to people I knew, and just hit the ground running. And that's kind of where I started the agency, just from experiencing the ability to get results for others and then just loving the feeling, right, of making someone happy and giving something, helping someone reach their goal, right?
Mm.
And so I felt like that was something that felt fulfilling. And so I went down that rabbit hole and it's been almost 7 years. Very happy I did.
That's fantastic. It's not obvious that a degree in art and sculpture and the like would transfer into being a great operations manager, but that's
Well, my dad being a software developer and, me coming from an entrepreneurial family, I always was very analytical, very into math and into tracking things, into being very like, my mom used to joke when I was like 5 years old, I would get like my allowance and coins and everything. And I had like this little box that had spaces for each coin, and I was super organized as a young man, and so I always feel like I had both the right and left brain side my whole life. I was very into creative and going into creating stuff abstractly while also going into the analytical mathematical side of things, where I did really well in math class, and I always wanted to make sure things were actually profitable because I had learned a very quick lesson in my first job where I bought a bunch of product to resell in the same hair loss company, and it didn't sell. And the
mm.
boss was very upset. And it was like $4,000 in raw goods that should have sold for about 8 or 9. And over 6 months it sold, but I bought more than I was supposed to buy in that moment. And from that on, I was just like, everything I need to make sure I know what that profit's going to be before, where I'm going to sell it before we spend. And so it was a lot of planning, like learning
Mm.
how to prepare for the worst but know exactly what steps you want to take when you start instead of pulling the trigger too quickly and then kind of getting stuck halfway through.
Wow. Those are great lessons to learn early in life.
Oh, yes. I'm glad I learned them young.
So your website describes an agenic AI teammate that ensures businesses don't
Yeah.
lose leads or conversions because they can't respond right away. But could you walk through how do you define agentic AI for your agency, and how is that different than like a regular chatbot?
So it's not different than a regular chatbot. It's really the tier above a chatbot, right? It's the type of AI you're using. Chatbots, phone services, email AI agents are using a very similar structure, right? So we all know what an LLM is, a large language model, that OpenAI, Claude, all of them offer a different variation of it.
Hmm.
All we do as business owners is rent using their code. And then we connect, and I'm sure you know plenty about this, but we're basically going to allow this large language model to learn information about your business. And instead of using pre-built solutions that are constantly being released, we built it around your business needs. So it's really an AI agent that is built based on your operations, your systems, your infrastructure, your CRM, your tools, and your operational protocol. So if you're a brand that has a specific voice and you're lighthearted, we can train the AI to be gentle and lighthearted so it feels like it's a real person talking to you. We provide that knowledge base. So understanding if you're in e-commerce, everything there is to know about your product and putting guardrails in place to ensure that if it's asking something aggressively, or a customer is aggressive with you or asks for medical advice, we know to always respond that, hey, you should ask your physician for medical advice. We are not able to give that kind of advice, but we can recommend this product because of this, this, and this. And so it actually replicates a lot of what your human employee would do. But instead of you having to wait those 8, 12 hours for your team to get to the office and the next day respond to all the incoming customer service from the day before, this allows you to respond to those customers instantly. So within a matter of 2 to 5 minutes, you send an email asking for tracking. The AI agent will respond with that tracking information because it'll have access to your CRM, your website, and your operating system. And we do close the loop. So we don't just let it go out in the web and search, right? Because that also spends a lot of your tokens. So we are also very conscious of how much it's spending out of your API keys, out of your LLM registration. And then from there on, if it needs escalation, that's where it transfers over to a human. When there's a creative or a relationship or an empathetic situation that needs to take place. But 80% of customer service is usually just repetitive, monotonous emails that are the same things, right? Like, think of it this way. If you have 100 emails of orders coming in and your team has to respond to all of those, checking the tracking, checking to see if it was shipped, sending them a link to the USPS, and then verifying that that is this customer, that can take 5 to 20 minutes, depending on the employee you have. So
Mm.
you hit a cap with how many customer service responses your employee can handle. But your employee's still going to have to handle difficult issues. He's still going to have to correlate that order to, hey, it got returned. I got to go fix it. So it's not like we're eliminating your employees' tasks. We're actually allowing them to focus on the things that actually bring in more revenue because they're things that only that human can do and gives you room to scale while handling all those automated replies through the AI agent, which it
Mhm.
does not replace 100% of customer service. And I never want people to think it's a 100% replacement. You can consider 75 to up to like 90% of those, repetitive tasks will be handled, and it allows you to actually build relationships with your B2B customers or your wholesale customers. And this is just an e-commerce scenario. It has thousands of applications in thousands of different industries. So what I think I specialize in and what our team has grown to be able to do is really understand the business, the client, so that we don't sell you a tool that you don't need, right? Like if you have zero phone calls coming in, you're not a phone type of business. Why would I recommend an AI phone service? You see what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it's kind of really understanding your specific situation to apply the right tools and solutions for your business. And that's what we try to do for our clients.
Cool. So I'm curious when it comes to training an LLM on a particular business, how big does your data set have to be? If you're a really small company, maybe you don't have a huge data set. What's the minimum size for that?
So that's the beautiful thing. It does not have to have a huge amount of data points. And actually, believe it or not, more data sometimes causes issues. You want to not repeat this because in SOPs, a lot of businesses will put like how to handle every specific scenario. And if you put that same scenario to be handled in 3 different ways, the AI will not know which way to handle it if there's 3 different ways. So we actually try to limit and create a very clear path and like a
Mhm.
road, like your AI can do XYZ. This is all the scenarios it can handle. And we also take, if the client has it, all past email correspondence to teach the AI how your team has been responding to the customers. that you guys have. Over time, the AI will learn how to do those responses better and understanding which subject lines have a better open rate, just like a marketing industry would do. And sometimes you don't have that in house. So that's an added level of benefit there. And then obviously just ensuring that the customer has all the accurate information. So like I said earlier, if someone's rude or if someone handles things incorrectly, we automatically put stops on the AI and that automatically transfers it to a real person. And that knowledge base is part of that. It's educating it on what not to do as well as what to do, everything about your business, several items of correspondence. And if you have a website, we really use your website as a knowledge base. We'll actually give specific URLs within your website for it to be able to source from. For example, team information. Who are the team members in your business, right? Connecting their email so that it knows, hey, if you want to connect with our sales rep, this is who it forwards to. If you want to
Mhm.
connect with, customer service or IT, this is who we're going to forward it to. So it becomes almost like a um, um, uh, multiple layers of things, right? It's going to be your customer service. It's going to be your assistant in a way where it's going to make sure to schedule your meetings for you. It's going to allow to correspond about items that are available in your database, schedule meetings, and a lot of the things that you don't necessarily need to spend your time doing. And if it goes outside of that realm, we can always grow the knowledge base and expand. And the truth is, for AI agents, we don't have one AI agent, right? In reality, you have multiple AI agents working together. So you'll have one that's trained as a sales agent, another one that's trained as a customer service agent, and you can integrate all of them into this inbox so it pulls the right answers for the right scenarios. And again,
So,
go ahead, please.
so when you're implementing the AI for the clients, what are the biggest operational bottlenecks you see, and how do you overcome those?
Sure. So sadly, we end up doing the work for the client. That's one of the big hurdle, like SOPs. Most customers, a lot of businesses don't have standard operating procedures.
Mm.
And building an SOP sometimes is quite an endeavor, right? So we help build a rough version of an SOP around the specific job that the client needs, right? Because we're not going to build a full SOP for your business unless you hire us for that as well, because we can help with that too. But the idea is with the purpose of implementing that first solution so that once we prove that one AI agent is a benefit to your business, we can then add additional AI agents for additional solutions. So it really depends on the business. But if most businesses do need to have some sort of knowledge base, right? Like, how do you handle difficult situations to begin with? So we actually ask a lot more questions in the start. Try to understand how you actually handle these scenarios now without AI so that we
Mm.
can have all those scenarios accounted for when we implement the AI.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Did I
for
answer
for
the question? I just want to
yeah,
make sure.
yes.
Okay. Sometimes I ramble, I go a little sidetrack, and I veer back in. So
Yeah, that's right. We'll put up guardrails. We'll
yeah.
um for so with for smaller businesses that have limited budgets, what is the most practical first step that they can take to adopt AI, but without, creating excessive complexity or risk or exceeding their budgets? What's a great first step?
So the first step, I'm glad you asked that question at this time because I just finished putting together a course, AI Agents for Business, how to 10x your productivity and profits. Basically, I consolidated in over the last 3 months. I've been recording, writing, and putting this course together. And it's really a culmination of the last 20 years of my experience in business, tying in the actual AI solutions over the last 2 years that have become available. And there's new solutions coming out every day. So in the course, I actually break down everything from understanding the customer journey and where to apply the AI agents, right? Is it the first
Mm.
touch of contact? Is it as a follow up? Is it as after the purchase to make sure they come back as a return customer? So in the course, I actually touch on all the different types of agents. I provide an understanding of how AI agents are built, right? So that you feel comfortable doing it yourself. And then sometimes you want to hire someone to do it for you, but you need to understand how to do it. So I really put this course in place to help educate business owners to understand what AI even is, right? We go from the basics to understanding a little bit of the history to demystifying it to giving you case studies and scenarios of other businesses using it to then jumping into the implementation. So you're slowly getting integrated into it. By the end of it, you could probably do it all on your own. And it's really now a matter of time and expertise. And
Hmm.
so this way, it slows you into this it's kind of like 20 years ago, websites. Everybody was scared of websites, but it was the internet boom and everybody needed a website and you didn't know who to hire. And how many people I hear horror stories of paying somebody $10,000 to build them a website back then, and then
I
they
I
disappeared.
still I still hear those horror stories. I've got a potential client who the people doing his website are holding his domain hostage
Yep.
until the lawyers busy, end up fighting it out because the company did not produce what they said they were going to, and but they want to get paid anyway.
No,
Still
I've heard
happens.
horror stories just like that with all my clients. Usually what happens is I get customers coming in because they've almost lost trust and faith in the whole opportunity
Hmm.
of the web because of one or two bad experiences. I'm very proud to say that I have a very long retention rate with my customer base. I don't take on huge amounts of clients, but we do give a lot of close attention, and that's why they stick around. But it's just like the internet boom, it's just like the crypto boom. People didn't understand Bitcoin, in 2015 when it became a thing, 2014. But now everybody wants to throw in, but now it's 100,000. And I kind of
Right.
like to say it's very similar to that. AI today is approachable and it's accessible because most people are just learning about it, right? We're a little bit past the beginner stage. Like it's already had a huge adoption rate, but it's not fully adopted into all businesses. But the businesses that don't adopt are going to be left behind, just like the people who didn't buy Bitcoin at 10,000 or even $2, right? It's actually going to increase in cost. It's going to be more expensive to implement because people are going to understand the value. Right now, there's still a gap in knowledge because not everybody has implemented it. So they're not seeing the distinct difference between your competition. But I'm telling you, in the next year or two, the distance from people who have implemented it and haven't is going to be so far apart that the people who are selling AI are going to tax that solution because it's going to be so obvious how much benefit it has to offer. Whereas today, people are still skeptical. They're still not sure. Like you see a bunch of posts about, Taco Bell using voiceover to take AI to take orders and how some guy
Hmm.
ordered, oh, I'd like to have 10,000 cups of water, please. And it broke the AI. I mean, yeah, if you don't have the right scenarios and security protocols in place, stuff like that's going to happen. But it's inevitable, right? In the next 2 years, it's going to impact a lot of jobs. And the way I try to teach it is how to implement AI without getting rid of your employees, because a lot of people are basically scared because it's going to get rid of employees, right?
Right.
And the idea is if you use AI to improve the workflow, to benefit and empower your employees, it's going to double down. It's going to 10x your business, right? If I have an account manager who has all his meetings booked automatically, has an AI that follows up to make sure that the meetings are going to show up, and if there's no response, they don't waste time on that meeting and they can do something else productive. Just the time spent saved from employees having to do some basic, you know, management tasks can almost double the profitability from that same team member. We're humans. I mean, I'm always going to want this type of face to face communication. I love networking. I love conversation. I love having eye to eye and getting to know someone. AI is never going to do that. And even when it does, we're not going to feel it. There's still that X factor we're never going to have with it, right? You want to feel human meat somehow, right? You want to know there's a real person on the other side. And when you start doubting, doubt comes into effect. That's where I'm not trying to say AI should take over phone calls and everything and replace us. But if we implement it with the employee's knowledge, which is part of what I go over in the course, like use your team to help you implement AI. Learn from them where the gaps can be improved upon. Like, for example, follow up. Most businesses get a lead in, they'll follow up once or twice, and then they forget about that lead. They'll have a drip campaign set up and it'll follow up for about 5 email drips. And then they forget that lead. AI won't do that. It'll keep
Mhm.
pounding and it'll remember that lead. And so over time, your team is just going to have a consistent flow of leads where they can actually do what we're doing today, building a relationship, getting to know each other, and doing things that we as humans care about. right? Like, this is heartwarming. This is fulfilling. Like, I enjoy sharing my knowledge. I enjoy passing this on to others so they can grow. And like I mentioned to you before, like, this what where the gratification comes from, right? I want to help people reach their goals. A lot of people do things for money or do things for fame. Like, I'm one of those originals that I just want to see that I had an impact in your life and I moved you forward, and you're happier than you were when you started. And at that point, obviously, you need to pay too, but that's really the gratitude I get. The satisfaction comes from really impacting people.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to have one last question and finish up. So what do you want people who might hire you to know about you and your company?
We want to get to know you. We don't want to just sell you a service and then forget about you. I rather start small and actually give an impact and provide an actual result so that you want to continue to work with me over, truthfully, generations. I mean, I'm building this hopefully for my kids to carry on, right? And we know that, businesses can last hundreds of years. Why not have, the marketing industry? I mean, Ogilvy is a perfect example of marketing generational amazing thing. So I basically want to be a support system, someone that you can trust, someone that you can call when you need help, and someone that can help you grow and reach your goals. And by understanding your business, not just saying that I understand your industry, because
Mhm.
I've worked in a lot of different industries. And one thing that overlaps all of them is they all have to have systems. They all have people. They all have protocols, and they all provide a value. So it's really understanding how to put all of those together in a pot and make it work, right? So it's really not about the industry, it's about the business owner and how he wants to grow his business.
All right. Well, that sounds fantastic. So I imagine that your clients are very happy with you. It's this has been a great conversation, David. I appreciate you joining us on the show, and I'll see you around the internet.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Yep.